Okay, so on this session, we're really exploring lucid dream techniques. So this is a bit more of an experimental and experiential session than we've done before. So let me just share my screen. This session is entitled A Wave in the Ocean of Everything. And what we're going to be doing here is really exploring how to become lucid in your dreams. Does anyone have regular lucid dreams? No? So lucid dreaming, especially if you don't have very much experience or no experience with it, confuses people quite a lot. So I'll just go through what I consider to be lucid dreaming. From a neurophysiological perspective, lucid dreaming has been discovered to be a hybrid state of consciousness containing features of both wakefulness and dreaming. So it's incredibly interesting that it does have these blended features of wakefulness and dreaming. So in some ways you could consider it the psychedelic experience. If you were to take psychedelic drugs, you would also experience a brain state similar to lucid dreaming, where you have these mixed states of wakefulness and dreaming simultaneously. So one of the elements that neuroscientists have explored is that during lucid dreaming, your prefrontal cortex, which is an area of the brain concerned chiefly with self-awareness, metacognition, thinking about thinking, is active. And ordinarily during normal REM sleep and dreaming, this is not the case. That area is relatively dormant. So one of the interesting, we're going to be talking about this more next week when we talk about the technology emerging around dreaming, lucid dreaming and sleeping, and the kind of future of sleeping and dreaming. One of the studies conducted by the neuroscientist, I think she's a neuroscientist, Ursula Voss at the University of Frankfurt, was exploring if you could use low current electrical stimulation into the frontal cortex to activate the prefrontal cortex during ordinary REM sleep in normal dreamers that don't have a history of lucid dreaming, and in that way encourage the brain to produce a similar resonance and therefore activate the lucid dreaming capability. And that to some extent was seen to be successful. So there was a piece of tech that was being developed called the Aladdin Dreamer, I think, that was working on this principle of sending low current stimulation into the frontal cortex to try to kickstart lucid dreaming, essentially. And some of the participants in Ursula Voss's study had spontaneous lucid moments, and they had not necessarily any track record or history of lucid dreaming. So that's quite interesting. So one of the ways I explain lucid dreaming to people that come to my workshops, for me personally, it's remembering who and where you are when you're in a dream. So within the dream state, you remember who you are, you remember the fact that you're in a dream, and there's an element of remembering almost everything about the dream environment in a strange way. I think that we talked last week about conscious and unconscious memories, and how there seem to be these two memory systems, one that functions in the dream state and one that functions during wakefulness. And for a lot of people that don't remember their dreams, those two memory systems don't seem to be very well integrated. But when I was mentioning Rebecca Sharrock last week, the woman that I know that has highly superior autobiographical memory, the one thing I neglected to mention that was actually the sort of key issue in how fascinating she is as a person is the fact that because she has this particularly wired brain, as I was saying, she's on the autistic spectrum as well, she remembers all of her dreams. All of her dreams are lucid. And so that's a fascinating element to how her memory systems are working, and suggests there's this integration between her conscious and subconscious memory systems. So I always describe a lucid dream as a dream in which you know who and where you are. And a lot of people will say that lucid dream is when you can control what happens in the dream. You can change it. You can manifest people, objects, or scenery according to your whims and desires. And I actually think that's the least important part of lucid dreaming. For me, lucid dreaming, the real benefit of it and the pleasure of it is the bliss and the ecstasy that you get from existing in this incredibly fully conscious, realer than real present moment that lucid dreaming somehow manages to offer. It's an amazing feeling of becoming almost physically aware, because it often manifests as a body sensation of bliss or ecstasy, kind of an embodied awareness of your creative ability, because you become conscious of the fact that you aren't just a dream avatar, you know, like version of yourself. You are literally making up the very fabric of the dream that you're existing in. And not only that, that it can, on occasions, morph according to your will and desire, be shredded and rebuilt, and all kinds of amazing things can happen during lucid dreaming. So I think it's an incredibly underestimated skill, and one that's really worth developing, and probably has an enormous amount of healing potential. I think we spoke when we were talking about the Greek sleep temples, this idea that I have that perhaps during a lucid state, if you've been conditioned to expect a healing dream and a healing type of event occurs in your dream, if you were to experience that healing event whilst lucid, knowing what we know about lucid dreaming, this fact that it's a blended hybrid state of consciousness which incorporates elements of wakefulness and dreaming at the same time, the best possible state to be in order to activate a placebo or faith healing response. So that's my 2 pence worth on lucid dreaming. And I think that one of my sort of real missions and passions is to try to explore and experiment with various people using lucid dreaming to see if you can activate this real life healing, self-healing mechanism within the body. We know that during sleep and during the night, homeostasis really kicks into gear, and homeostasis is the body's natural cleaning and regulating cycle that occurs during rest periods, that really kind of fixes, repairs cells, detoxifies the body. And if you think about, if you're in that state but you're also conscious, perhaps you can direct that healing in a meaningful way. And if you think about some of the ayamata, as we were talking about, bless you, some of the ayamata, as we were talking about, these kind of dream narratives, these stories about what occurred for people in dreams in the Greek Asclepians, detailing these physically impossible operations. I mentioned having your head cut off and having bees tipped out. So imagine that in your dream state, you're fully lucid. One thing that's also worth thinking about is you think about how much ancient people were adoring their gods. So for them, an encounter, an audience with their god would have been an extraordinary, sacred, divine, holy moment. And that realization may be the thing that triggers them to become lucid. Because if you think about it, if you were to meet one of the best little things in life that can help you become lucid in dreams is often having an incredibly powerful crush on someone. And what you find is that when they appear in your dreams, as they're likely to do because you think about them a lot, you can become lucid because you're so excited and happy to see them, that it generally kind of activates your consciousness to become aware of the fact that you're in a dream. So you can imagine that ancient people going to these sleep temples may have become lucid precisely because they encountered this particular god in their dream, and then becoming conscious vivifies the dream god divine encounter and makes it more and more potent. So let's say this is happening, they're lucid, and then this god, one of the things that Asclepius might do in a dream is put some healing balm on you, and this healing balm is going to have supernatural powers because it's being applied in a lucid dream state. And so I wonder whether the physiological, biological part of the human organism is responding to the supremely potent, imaginal and conscious influence of Asclepius applying this balm. And I wonder whether the body attempts in its blended state of wakefulness and dreaming to match an appropriate healing response to that. And one of the things we'll discuss a bit later on is this idea of eating and drinking in dreams, and how food and drink can act as agents of psychological transformation. So often in dreams, you might eat something or drink something. I wonder if any of you have had a dream where you get dream drunk, you drink too much alcohol at a party in a dream and you feel like drunk and woozy. I've had that experience quite a lot. And similarly, I was also given a brick of psychedelic meat once by a delivery person on the doorstep, and I ate that and I had a psychedelic experience. And I think what we do, because I've actually never taken psychedelic drugs or had a psychedelic experience, so I think sometimes what we do is we give ourselves a version of what we think that might be like, or what we know that state to be like. We're able to create that. So I imagine that a similar thing would occur with a divine healing intervention from a god in a dream as well. I've had a couple of dreams where I've met healers. One of them was the Zoroastrian god Ahura Mazda, who infused me with light and appeared in the at the top of the stairs in my old house when I was a kid. And I had that interesting experience where within a dream you have this sort of omnipotence and you're able to see close up and far away at the same time. And Ahura Mazda came down from the ceiling and walked into my body, irradiating my body with his holy light. And I could see him stepping down the spirals of my DNA, which were untwisting to accommodate him. And then as he was stepping down, each strand of DNA was like glowing with healing and health. And I woke up feeling amazing. So I think those experiences can be really powerful. We all know it from the other side. Like everyone knows that if you have a horrible dream where someone you love gets killed, or you think you've got cancer in your dream and you wake up and you feel awful, we all know how that state of mind can perpetuate into the following day and even beyond that. So I think it's absolutely the case that if you have a healing, wonderful, transcendental, holy, divine dream, that can have lasting impact. And many people say that incredibly transformative occurrences that happened in their life are delivered in the dream state, and a dream can be just as powerful as a real life experience, if not more so, because it's not subject to the normal laws of our material reality. So we've talked about lucid dreaming, and something else that's really important to consider when we're looking at lucid dreaming, and one of the best kind of starting points to explore lucid dream consciousness, I would say, is the hypnagogic state. So the hypnagogic state is a state that we enter as we're drifting off to sleep, and it's a fascinating state of consciousness where you can have full-blown auditory and visual hallucinations. Often you'll hear a doorbell go or your name being called. All sorts of things can happen. You can have quite complex hallucinations, and I always find it really fascinating because you can be in the middle of a hypnagogic hallucination, and then if you give any element of it your attention, you kind of snap right out of it. And I find it fascinating because they can be really complex and detailed, and you're just about aware of the fact that you're even in them, which I find interesting. One of the states of consciousness I find really fascinating as a sort of springboard into lucid dreaming and deep hypnagogic relaxation is having an orgasm. During, like at the end of an orgasm, when you have what's called the little death experience, it's very similar to sort of deep hypnagogia, where you're kind of feel out of your body slightly, and that can be a really good entry point for deep relaxation into the kind of hypnagogia that you keep a loose hold of. So my favorite way of entering a lucid dream is the wild technique, the wake-induced lucid dream. And this is where you kind of consciously enter hypnagogia, and your aim is to not fall into a deep sleep. Your aim is to pass through hypnagogia almost as if it's like a tunnel or something. And I always compare it to Alice in Wonderland falling down the rabbit hole, because I think for me that's the most accurate description of what it feels like, because there is this sense of motion, of movement within your own consciousness to the deepest level of your consciousness. So hypnagogia is a mixture of alpha and theta brainwaves. So we're kind of mixing just general relaxing thinking types of brainwaves to more drowsy sleep inducing brainwaves. But this, you can snap out of this at any point, and there is no kind of dominant brainwave during this period. So that means that you can't really concentrate on things, or if you do concentrate on anything, then you find yourself snapping out of hypnagogia. So the best way to, I find anyway, the best way to maintain a hypnagogic state and extend it, I think learning to extend the hypnagogic state and retaining a conscious awareness of it, a very gentle, soft gaze view of the hypnagogic experience, is really important for entraining your consciousness to be able to become lucid. So we also have the hypnopompic state, which is that state that we have as we're rousing from sleep, and that's similar to hypnagogia, but actually is slightly different in terms of how it presents. So what we find here is you have hypnopompic hallucinations quite often, and these can also occur during even during the non-dream states of sleep, where you have these almost bursts of wakefulness that appear sort of as fragments within a dream or at the other end of a dream. So hypnopompic hallucinations also are the kind of container at the end of a period of sleep where you have the potential to go back over your dream and reconfirm it a little bit to your consciousness. So as we're coming out of sleeping and dreaming, our memories of the dream can often start to evaporate. So during this period, it can be quite useful to work with the hypnopompic hallucinations and sort of visually embellish them, enhance them, make them more powerful. So I think that I loved Alice in Wonderland. Was my favorite story when I was a kid. I loved reading it. I loved thinking about the scenery, visualizing the scenery. And because I was into dreaming before I read Alice in Wonderland as a kid, it really appealed to me, because for me, the whole of the story is one long lucid dream, and everything within it is really useful for thinking about lucid dream entrainment, actually. So this idea of falling down a hole, to me, does anyone ever have, like, as you're drifting off to sleep, your body will suddenly kind of jerk, a myoclonic jerk it's called, and often you'll be having a little hypnagogic visual experience while you're doing this. And mine is often I'm walking along and I'll trip on a curb or something like this. But this reminds me of Alice falling down the rabbit hole, and the journey into a dream is like this. There's this no man's land of the rabbit hole that Alice is falling down, and you can't see it here, but as she's falling down, she sees various little vignettes and scenes and characters and objects, and she doesn't focus too closely on any of them. She's allowing them to like wash over her, drifting down this hole. But as she's going, she's asking questions about her life, about her cat Dinah, and making up little rhymes, and this is how the kind of hypnagogic consciousness does seem to work. You get these little fleeting impressions, ideas, poems, even snippets of what almost look like full-blown films. Like, they can be hugely detailed, but it's all about maintaining this soft gaze and allowing yourself to continue that momentum down into the dream proper. So I consider this rabbit hole to be the hypnagogic experience, and then when she arrives at the bottom of the rabbit hole and she finds herself in this corridor, it's where she's in this like creative zone, where once she walks through a door, she's in another realm. And we're going to look at a few other things in Alice in Wonderland as well, because I think it's really like almost everything in it is lucid dream like. One of the other things, I think we spoke about this previously, is how powerful words can be in terms of getting into your consciousness and manifesting in your dreams as visual and symbolic content later on. So this is the mouse's tail from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. And I always loved the fact that this was written in the pattern of a mouse's tail, because I think we often associate our identity and our individuality with our eyes, with the things that we see. And as you're reading this, you're following the pattern of the mouse's tail, and your kind of consciousness moves with this pattern, and it gives you an entirely different feeling about the words that are written there. So Alice falls down the rabbit hole. She lands in the corridor where there are various different choices and options. And that's kind of what happens if you hold on to your consciousness as though it's a thread, and you allow it to lead you into the dream proper. And what tends to happen is that the small fleeting images or the ideas that become most concrete as we're falling through the hypnagogic experience manifest as the first objects and things of the dream that we end up landing in. And as we put our attention on them, once we're properly in a dream, they develop and they kind of organically evolve, and they can organically evolve very rapidly as well. So another lovely thing, this is from Alice Through the Looking Glass, is how surfaces, portals, doors, windows, mirrors, all these kinds of things can act as transformative portals through which, when we pass through them, a dream scene can change completely, because there isn't necessarily continuity in the dream landscape. Although trying to create continuity, it can be really useful for doing that integration between the subconscious and the conscious memory. So one thing we'll get onto a bit later is how water can be so prevalent in dreams. And what we're going to do today, our exercise today, is to explore certain potent imagery, I guess, which I'm hoping will work its way into your dreaming this evening. And you'll see for yourselves how powerful thought, intention, visual images and words are for creating the kind of dreams that you want. So when Alice is in the corridor and she's upset about not being able to get through this little door, and you know, this is another element that's a frequent feature of dreams, is this feeling of frustration. You can't do or go where you want to. Lots of people dream about being stuck at a train station, not being able to find the right train, or not being able to drive a car properly, being out of control of a car. There are so many types of frequent dreams that are like this. And the elements in the dream, and this is what occurs when she cries in the hallway, the elements, the water in the dream has this power also to transform Alice. And so as she cries, she becomes tiny, and then she's able to get through the door underneath it or through the keyhole, because she's become so minuscule. And here you can see she's like not much bigger than a mouse. So we talked about this idea that you can drink things and you can eat things in the dream realm. And I think because your consciousness, your body expects for changes to occur, even if they're just like sensory tastes and smells, your consciousness tries to mimic the kinds of changes that you might expect to experience if you were ordinarily awake. So in Alice in Wonderland, for example, and I think it's a fascinating thing that he put into this book. So whenever Alice eats or drinks something, she usually changes shape. And I always used to fantasize about the little cake in Alice in Wonderland. I loved the description of that cake in the story. I thought it was really beautiful. It was just a rectangular cake. I couldn't find a satisfying image of it online, actually, because I don't know whether I imagined exactly what it looked like reading the original books, or whether that image isn't online, but I always imagined it, and I know it's written in the description, that it's a small little tablet cake, almost like a little tiny bar of soap, and the words "eat me" were written in currants, as I recall. And I think it was even in a little transparent box, but I loved his description of it. And so I vividly imagined that in my mind, and I really enjoyed a lot of his descriptions in that book. So when Alice drinks the potions or she eats something, whether it's the cake or the pieces of toadstool, she often changes size. And here you can see her, she's in the lizard's house, and she's become really big when the White Rabbit confuses her for his maid. So on the subject of water, which is a feature in the Alice in Wonderland story from the very beginning as being this transformative agent, we come to dream about water quite a lot. And I want you to think about, if you can think of any instances where bodies of water, the sea, lakes, rivers, waterfalls, springs, anything like that has featured in your dreams, because this is something that we want to try to incubate in today's session to see if we can seed these ideas in our subconscious mind for them to manifest for us later on. And water to me relates very strongly to memory and to emotion. And many people report dreams of tsunamis. And this is often because they feel overwhelmed by emotion, and this image very graphically represents being overwhelmed and submerged and drawn away and out of control, I suppose, like that you have to surrender to the power of the tsunami. You can't stand up against the power of a tsunami. I just last night actually had a dream about flooding. I was living in this little mud house right on the edge of the sea, and the tide was getting closer and closer and closer. And I was preparing myself to leave because I was conscious of the fact that if the tide rose just a little bit more, my house would be submerged. So flooding is a frequent feature of dreaming, and rivers and streams have this power to connect areas and spaces, and they seem to be as well a kind of natural transportation route in dreams. It's interesting how long it takes technology and culture to catch up with human dreaming, I think, because I don't really have very many dreams where I've got a phone. But a lot of younger people will tell me that they dream about being on their phone, trying to take photos on their phone, things like this on quite a regular basis. So I think that there's something about traveling by boat or traveling on rivers that seems more a dreamlike mode of transport. And I do often dream of driving cars. I don't dream in real life, but I've noticed that luckily my dreams have gone from when I was a teenager, I remember often driving and being out of control in cars, to now I seem to know how to drive in dreams, which is quite reassuring, I think. So we're going to talk about how certain elements might feature in dreams, and I'll just run through these quickly, and then what I want to do is go back over them, and I want us to do some exercises where you draw some images that represent water in your dreams, or watery types of phenomena that you've experienced in dreams. And then I want you to write down any words that you associate with some of these images as well. And I want you to look at your notes before you go to bed this evening. And then when you wake up in the morning, look back over them and see if you can recognize if there's any mirroring going on. So I often see rivers, streams and springs, especially springs, natural springs and fountains. So many fountains, like every single night I dream about fountains and springs. So they're always a big feature for me. And then one of the other things we can explore in today's session is the quality of light that you get in a dream. And if you if you have a dream and you have entrained yourself during the day to analyze your reality and really think about what things mean, we can hopefully transfer that to the dream state. So I want you to, when you're in a dream state, to really look at what the light looks like. Does it look like a natural source of light that you might expect from the sun on a normal day, or does it look like a light switch quality of light, or does it have this different dream light? Because one of the things that I'm very interested in is how light manifests in dreams, because it doesn't get spoken about very much, but it's really an extraordinary thing. You can see so much in dreams, isn't it? Like, I just find that in and of itself one of the most mind-blowing facts about dreaming, that it can be so vivid and colorful and detailed and is a proper visual experience, and yet actually you're in the dark and you've got your eyes closed. And so it speaks volumes about our imaginal powers, I think. Our imaginal powers to conjure up the most phenomenal visual information. So what I find in dreams is, well, one of the things that I find quite interesting, and I've only experienced this once, is a lot of people have said that, especially during lucid dreams, whatever area of the dream you're looking at is highly detailed. But if you observe kind of around the edges and the periphery, it can be a bit blurry, which I find quite fascinating. So it definitely seems to me within a lucid dream that your attention augments the reality that you're able to engage with at that time. So as I was saying earlier about, I've had these experiences where you can see sort of close up and far away at the same time. And it's almost like at any given moment, you can select your point of view. So that to me suggests that you aren't based consciously in the dream avatar of yourself. You're everywhere within the dream realm that you've created. So when you're in a dream tonight, I want you to look at the features of this dream, the landmark features, the landscaping features, the characters, the animals, the birds, the elements, the water, the light, everything. And the more aware that you do become of your dream scenery, the more likely you are to wake up and become lucid. So birds are a big dream theme for me. And I think there are certain creatures that just have extra potency and agency in dreams, and birds, serpents and big cats are my kind of go-to dream creatures. All kinds of birds as well. And talking about attention and perception, one of the things I really noticed in dreaming is that you know, one thing, visual acuity is incredible, because I haven't got enormously fantastic eyesight ordinarily, but in a lucid dream, you have absolute 20/20 perfect vision, or can do. So that's interesting that you can have that much focus and detail. And my eyesight isn't that bad, but I see things in this extraordinary magnified crystal clear way in lucid dreams that I don't in ordinary life. And that's part of the reason why they are so vibrant and incredible, because they are this like extra sharp focus visual experience. And one thing I've noticed about birds is that my attention and my focus increases the scale of the things that I'm looking at. So insects and birds are much larger than they are in real life, because it's like, because I'm in control of the entire dream scenery, instead of me having to get closer to a bird, I just make it that much bigger so that I can see it close up because it's big. And I find that really interesting, because all the birds in my dreams are like the size of toddlers, and all the insects are about this big, so I can just see them much more vividly, and it makes them also appear a bit more novel and exotic, and it kind of deepens the lucid experience of them as well. So we're going to go back over these elements afterwards, but I just want to go through them now so that you're prepared to do it. So for me, birds, I mean, I chose an eagle, but I usually dream about wading birds like herons, egrets, and avocets, things like hoopos and more exotic birds. I was in the Young Ornithologist Club when I was a kid, and I've always been super into birds, so I dream about birds a lot. And I always also, when I was a kid, I had this Hamlin Animal Encyclopedia, and I love drawings of animals. I think there's something about drawings and paintings of animals where they somehow manage to get into your subconscious in a special way, because perhaps your imagination is making more of an effort to know them through this artistic representation, a bit like how poetry requires something of the reader to kind of give it its magic and power. So another animal that features, although actually not so much snakes, I have a lot of dreams about salamanders and lizards. And I think there's something about the motion and the movements of these kinds of creatures that is suggestive of dreaming. They have a sort of mesmerizing quality and an interesting movement as well. And that featured in lots of mythological stories as well, like Medusa, like the rod of Asclepius. They were the sacred animal of Asclepius, of course, and we know that they have this incredible power to regenerate when they shed their skin. They emerge looking so much more healthy and new. And if a small bit of a snake tail comes off, the snake has the power to regenerate that portion of the snake tail as well. So I think we were talking about how these miracle healing snakes have been incorporated into Greek Orthodoxy as well. So this is like the Miracle Snake Festival of Pangea in Kefalonia, where at a certain time of year, I think it might be August, I'm not sure, a little tiny church in Kefalonia is filled up with these snakes, and the congregation come to be touched by the snakes and to be spontaneously healed. In this instance, through Greek Orthodoxy, it's through the Virgin Mary. And so another animal that features frequently in my dreams, and I think, you know, using a kind of mythological lens to look at these kind of creatures, we have a bird which has this ability to travel through all the realms of earth, from the earth through the sky and into the heavens. And we have snakes that emerge from the underground, and especially in the case of the Asclepian snakes, they were tree snakes, so they emerge from the underground, they work their way up a tree and they can reach its branches, and so they traverse all of the realms. They're the axis mundi of earth. And then we have lions and big cats, and there is I think a trigger for me, because lions and big cats, when you see them in dreams, they're sort of an immediate alert to your consciousness, because I think we're kind of hardwired to be afraid of large, powerful animals that hunt other animals. And often in dreams, I'll see a lioness, and they have very powerful faces as well. Their eyes and mouths, they really, if you close your eyes, you can kind of still see their faces, because these faces are so perfectly symmetrical and powerful. So in my dreams, often I see a lioness, and often I've had this dream since I was a kid. I'm walking around a zoo that has barely contained animals, and they're often behind these really flimsy fences or in really kind of broken down cages, and they're just on the edge of coming out. And so this gives my consciousness some time to prepare for the interaction between me and these wild animals. And so often I'll see a lioness and I have this sense of fear of it, and that alert that it gives me, like there's a danger, is the thing that makes me wake up in the dream. And then I become aware of the fact that it is a dream, and as the lioness approaches me, I sort of tentatively reach out a hand and stroke her, and she becomes friendly, or she could morph into something much less threatening or gentle. But there is something about, you know, I was saying before, most people that regularly lucid dream start lucid dreaming because they had nightmares as children. And the reason they learned to lucid dream or developed lucid dreaming was because often they wanted to get out of a dream because they were so scary. So you make a decision then sometimes, like, do I just want to use lucidity to wake up because I know I can wake up now because I know it's a dream, or do I use lucidity to transform this terrifying experience into something not so terrifying? And people talk often about like realizing it's a dream, so fighting with something and giving themselves extra powers or extra weapons because they can manifest what they want. But I've always found the most successful way of transforming a dream is to really love the thing that's scary and in the process of loving it, especially if you're lucid, you'll transform it, because that dreamscape is under your control. So when you feel love, all the characters and all the landscape transforms to match your feeling. So I mean, one of the things I find is if you're continually fighting something, you get this sense eventually that you're fighting yourself, because the more fear or the more anger that you have, the more fear and anger there is reflected in this element of the dream that is kind of acting as a mirror. So we're going to go back now, and I'll talk you through some of the techniques that you might like to try this evening when you go to sleep. And we're going to do a session of guided hypnagogic meditation at the end of this as well. So we'll just do this for another 15 minutes or so. So first of all, if you do have a pen and paper handy, that would be great. I want you to write the word water, and perhaps write down some forms of water that you have previously seen in a dream state, and any meaningful information you feel that these encounters may have had for you. If you've ever seen a tsunami, if you have traveled on a boat on a river, if you've drank from a powerful spring, anything that you can think of. And if you can't think of any personal experience of a water form in a dream, then try and think about some watery landscape or water feature that is meaning for you in real life, and draw that on your paper and write down any thoughts and feelings that you have about this particular water feature or this particular scene. Like, if you could go anywhere to be near water, where would you go? And what do you think about the element of water? How does it communicate to you? Does it relate to memory? Does it relate to emotion? Does it relate to tears, as it does in Alice in Wonderland? Alice in Wonderland cries so much that she creates a pool of her own tears that she then drowns and swims in. And then how about a tsunami? How does a tsunami make you feel? Do you understand? Do you feel that sense of emotional overwhelm, that kind of power of the world just overtaking you and sublimating you? And then think also about the memory of water, how memory has existed, and the water on this planet has existed for so long and accompanies us throughout our lives every single day. The same water must contain the memory of the entire planet and the cosmos before it. And think about how you felt about rain when you were a child, and try to imagine yourself now being a small child, and were there any watery phenomena that spoke to you as a child? I remember as a child looking at windows with raindrops on them and having raindrop races with people to try to guess which raindrop would reach the bottom of the window pane. I remember when I was very small, when it rained really, really heavily, I would sometimes be worried that the biblical 40 days and 40 nights of rain would happen and would all be drowned. I thought about walking on frozen lakes, walking on really, really thick ice, about ice cracking. I thought a lot about natural springs and drinking natural spring water. And this was somehow almost like a covenant with the planet, with the memory of the planet. that spring water had magic powers. And I remember, I lived near the River Wandle in Croydon when I was little, and I remember that one time Thames Water allowed this leak into the river system, and so the river foamed like bubble bath for a couple of days. And I remember when I was a kid thinking that was amazing. It was this sort of like magical, novel, exotic thing that the rivers were like bubble bath, even though obviously it was incredibly pollutive and killed loads of fish and creatures. But in my small kids' eyes, it was a sort of exciting event. So think about how you personally relate to water, and there must be so many stories about water in your life, and especially if you can relate it to your childhood, any really meaningful experiences that happened in your childhood that relate to water. And when you go into your dream this evening, really think about, become aware and pay attention to any sources of water in your dreams. So write down a list of any source of water that you can think of, any word for water that you can think of in other languages. And think about what those words, the etymology of water, what the word water really means, and what water really means for you. This tap water tastes a little bit like I've scooped it out of an old fish tank. Don't know why. See, it's not as good as a magic spring water. Okay, so now I want you to think about the quality of light in dreams, and the quality of light that you might have seen in your life as well, and if there's anything that you think parallels it. So one of the things I describe dream light as is almost as though everything has an internal radiant core. So light seems to emanate out of the things of dreams, rather than there being this external light source that shines down on everything in the dream. Light seems to be emitted from the things of dreams. So the dream material itself seems to glow like it's bioluminescent in a way. And dream light to me also does have this slightly different quality. It's more green, bluey, violet light rather than warm light. So there is a sort of slightly moon luminescence to it. Definitely there's a different quality to the light in dreams, and there's a particular light that in and of itself tends to alert me to the fact that I'm dreaming, and it is this kind of mystical lunar quality to it. It has a sort of mystical lunar quality to it, and I recognize it as being dream light. And often you can see the stars and very rich plants and water as well. So I want you to think about any dream experiences you've had where the light quality is especially noticeable, whether it occurs during moonlight, whether you notice something like I was saying about how elements of the dream seem to have this bioluminescent quality. I did read that the director of Avatar dreamed the bioluminescence of Avatar in a lucid dream, and actually I think that's the best bit of Avatar. Avatar 2 coming out shortly, actually. So do you see stars? Do you see the moon? Do you see artificial light sources? Do you see fire? Do you see glowworms? Do you see bioluminescence? What light sources do you see in dreams? And what light sources would you like to see in your dreams? Write down any light sources you'd like to see. I always think that the kind of, when you have those awe-inspiring moments out in nature, those are things that really kind of vividly burn into your memory, and they are easily conjured up in the lucid dream state, I think, because they are strong emotional memories, and there's definitely an emotional component to the memories that we find ourselves returning to over and over again in dreams. So spend a little time here thinking about if you've ever seen an incredible meteor shower, or the aurora borealis, or a spectacular full moon, or the recent red moon, whether you got a good view of that, things like this. And as I say, write down or draw anything that you would like to see in your dreams, any kind of light that you would like to see in your dreams. And then we're going to get onto the subject of birds. And birds are often described in mythology and ancient stories as being the messengers of the gods. And frequently people will also talk about feeling like they have encounters with deceased loved ones when particular birds visit them, maybe like a red cardinal or a white dove, or an unusual bird that seems to appear and is out of the ordinary. There's something really special, I think, about seeing a bird that is out of the ordinary, out of context. It becomes kind of magnified. It's the experience of it is more intense when a bird is out of context. Remember when I was a kid, I lived near Crystal Palace Park, and there was a fire at the zoo there. And for the following few years after that fire, you used to kind of see some exotic birds every now and again flying around Crystal Palace where they had escaped. And I always thought that was really magical and special. It had a sort of magical, realism vibe to it. Just think about how a bird moves, and you can do these exercises. You can do these little exercises of just imagining now the head movements and the eye movements and the feather movements, the wing movements, the claw movements of a bird. And we talked last week about, one of the reasons why I think children have such incredibly vivid and often lucid dreams is the fact that they spend an incredible amount of their day just playing and imagining. And the kind of fantasy worlds that they create just during ordinary periods of play are really conducive to lucid dreams, because they're just constantly exercising their imagination and practicing visualizing things. And really, I think, I remember playing when I was little, and the powerful imaginal landscapes that you create, they almost become like a kind of filter over the real world. You can see the real world, but you can actually see the things of your imaginal play realm as well. I remember we used to play a game quite a lot where we pretended to be Eskimos, and we would paddle in a little canoe. We had a little igloo, and we used our duvet to make all of these various different things. But I could really vividly see our snowy landscape and the ice and the river, and being inside the igloo, and penguins and seals. So I think that this is one of the things that we really need to learn to engage a bit more with as adults, is imagining and playing, and just spending time in daydreams and reverie is really, really all useful practice for lucid dreaming. So think about any birds that you've seen in dreams, any birds that you feel have communicated or acted as messengers for you. What bird do you associate yourself with? Which bird speaks to you, and which bird is most appealing to you? Which bird would you like to see? Which kinds of birds would you most like to see? And imagine what the bird experience is like consciously. Imagine what it feels like to fly, to have your eyeballs on either side of your head, and to have this kind of bicameral vision. Imagine what it feels to feel thermals under your wings, buoying you up, gliding on these thermals. And through doing this, we're really exploring some ideas about personal mythology as well. And that's one established technique to encourage lucid dreaming is working and developing personal mythology. And this is an idea developed by the parapsychologist David Krippner and David Feinstein, who wrote the book Personal Mythology. And that contains a series of exercises to kind of really work out, in essence, what your dream motifs, themes, and myths are, because we tend to align ourselves with certain myths and archetypes and motifs in very early childhood, really. And then if we don't work through those, if we don't evolve and grow through those, then we can end up stuck in a bit of a rut. I always think it's interesting to ask people how old they are when they dream, because most people will dream of themselves in a certain time period, and an amazing amount of people that I know will still dream of themselves as being a kid going to school every night, and dreaming that they're late for school, or that they've not got the right stuff for an exam and things like this. And most people seem to dream of themselves being a few years younger than they are now. So it's quite an interesting thing to contemplate, you know, who do you really think you are? And in your dream state, I think there's interesting work there to do with how you see yourself in dreams kind of reflects your inner world in your waking reality. And you could look at a useful exercise for dreaming is developing this dream version of yourself, which is a really good, honest, but best version of yourself. So a lot of people will have dreams where they're like crippled by self-doubt and anxiety, or they're constantly frustrated, or they're constantly failing, and they're almost the worst version of themselves, kind of falling at every hurdle. And then other people might have dreams where they're a sort of deluded, inflated version of themselves, and they're not quite there in their waking reality as well. But I think the best kind of dream avatar is one where you're fully integrated and comfortable with who you are in the present moment, and you can appreciate that there's room for improvement and room for growth, but you are fully reconciled with who you are now, and you love who you are now, and you are a realistic portrayal, fully accepting of who you really are in the dream state. So think about what snakes might mean to you, and we can look at this through the Asclepian perspective. So these snakes, this one in particular is an Asclepian snake, actually, the species of Asclepian snakes that were used in the temples, and they're non-venomous tree snakes, and associated with healing, regeneration, fertility, medicine, magic. And they are very, very mesmerizing to look at snakes. The way they move is extraordinary to watch. The way they sound. Imagine, if you can, this snake animated, flickering its forked tongue out, moving its eyes, undulating its body along the floor. Imagine this snake slithering around your body when you're lying in a sleep temple one evening, hearing its breath, hearing its smooth, rhythmic movements around your body. So what do snakes mean for you? Are you scared of snakes? Do you love snakes? Would you like to have snakes draped over your body right now? Would you really rather never have a snake anywhere near you? What does a snake smell like? Try to engage all the senses when you think about what a snake means to you. Look at the scales on the snake's body, the beautiful patterns, the artistry of the creation of this body is incredible. There's something very pure about a snake, pure and simple. A conduit for earth energy, live wire. You can see how it's associated with that energy of the spine, Kundalini. The coiled serpent at the base of the spine. being activated, awakened, rising up through the body, opening the chakras and emerging through the crown of the head. So think about any time in your life that you've seen a snake, being close to a snake, touched a snake. Have you been scared of being bitten by a snake? Think about the mythology surrounding snakes. The serpent hair of Medusa. You know, we kind of were read these stories a lot as children, and Greek myths, Aesop's fables, all stories get into our conscious and subconscious mind, and they have a power to construct a narrative out of our own lives. And we have probably constructed a narrative out of our own lives already. So personal mythology, this transpersonal approach to dreaming, is really identifying what your personal mythology is. So think about the dreams that are most meaningful to you and how they fit into your worldview now. Like, who are you as a character, as an archetypal character out of any mythological story that you've ever read? Who would you associate yourself with? And then we come to big cats. And these could be big cats. They could be any kind of land mammal, really. Elephants, giraffes, dogs, any kind of, think about any animal that you've had a meaningful bond with, or that you recognize immense power. A creature that you know has immense power. You can feel its immense power. I mean, look at the eyes of these creatures. They're just emanating immense power. So think about any creature in your life that you felt a communication with, a bond with, looking into your dog's eyes as a child and really feeling the soul, the spirit of that animal. Okay, so we're going to go into our hypnagogic meditation now. But just before we do so, I want to mention to you this astral bathing weekend that I'm doing for the Psychedelic Society of London on the 12th and 13th of August. And it's going to be in a little campsite on the South Downs in West Sussex. And it's in a particular region of the park that's one of these designated dark skies regions, because it's going to be during the Perseid meteor shower. So as we mentioned during the Mesopotamian section, we're going to be exploring this concept of astral bathing or astral irradiation for healing dreams. So the idea in Mesopotamia is that the Sipu or the Asu would leave patients to dream under the stars, as it was considered that the stars were astral celestial gods, and by their light irradiating your body, you could absorb all of their healing beneficial influence. So we're going to do some Mesopotamian dream incubation experimentation during this weekend, and also I'm working with my friend Daniel Taylor, who specializes in dream telepathy, group dreaming, and precognitive dreaming. So we're going to be doing some experiments for that. During this weekend, there's also the full hazel moon in Celtic tree lore. It's the full moon of hazel, and in a lot of ancient cultures, the moon is often personified as a god that's a messenger of the gods above him. So I kind of like this idea. Full moons are not ordinarily the best conditions to view meteor showers, but I think it will still be good in the dark skies region of the park. And the added influence of this of the lunar orb could be seen as a messenger of the gods as well. So I'm excited to do this. It's over 2 days. So that's one thing. And then if you do want to do any more sleep hypnosis or get in contact with me, tell me about your dreams or give me any feedback, or tell me any ideas you have, then you're welcome to email me as well. So does anyone have any questions or would you like to go straight into the guided hypnagogic meditation section? Marina, that is, let me just write that for you, Stanley Krippner and David Feinstein. I think that's the right I's and E's. So that book is called Personal Mythology. Got it here somewhere. I don't know, I've definitely got it somewhere. So Personal Mythology, Stanley Krippner and David Feinstein. Does anyone else want to, does anyone else have any questions about lucid dreaming techniques? Because we're kind of doing our own lucid dream experiment here, but does anyone have any questions about lucid dreaming techniques or queries or anything like that?
Do you happen to have any more quick techniques just for, one thing I practiced, I had read a long time ago, was looking at your hands multiple times a day, both sides, and asking yourself, am I dreaming? Am I dreaming?
Yeah.
I was able to acquire or get into lucid dreaming with that technique years ago, but I found myself more often explaining that technique to people in my dreams rather than it launching me into a lucid dream. I'm just curious if you have any more quick tips on things to look for or to watch for, whether it's mirrors or what works for you possibly that you could share, please.
Well, one thing that I think is really worth doing is, as we were talking about at the beginning, is trying to expand the hypnagogic states, that you become more and more familiar with the imaginal state. Because I personally think the most useful, well, any technique that improves your memory of memories, if you know what I mean. So sometimes I do this little practice where I remember an event that happened in my life really vividly, and actually remembering your dreams is even better than that. So when, you know, people talk about, we talked about dream journaling last week, and dream journaling is seen as like the boring thing to do to have good, you know, dreams or have lucid dreams. But actually, if when you're writing in your dream journal, and you frequently are when you're writing it down for the first time, you're actively remembering, reimagining, visualizing it in your imagination, then you're technically you're putting these elements together and you're living out an imaginal version of it again. And one of the things that I find, and it's a practice in personal mythology as well, that you think about those meaningful breakthrough dreams that you have had, the ones that really stuck with you forever, and you actively imagine them. You literally just close your eyes and you remember and imagine what happened in that dream. And if you do that when you're going to sleep during the hypnagogic state, that can be really powerful, and you can even end up going back into that dream. So I think that the power of the imagination can't be underestimated. And one thing with personal mythology, it's all about identifying what your themes and motifs are. So when you do identify them, they become natural lucidity triggers, because I worked out following the personal mythology practice that lionesses were my trigger. So then it started that anytime I saw a lioness, I became instantly lucid, because I recognized that this has been my kind of lucid dream motif for years. Same with wading birds and fountains and springs. Like, I recognize that they're my themes and motifs. So it's worth working out what your themes and motifs are. Most people will find that they do have recurring themes and motifs. One thing that works really well, as we've talked about previously, is writing out an intention of what it is that you want to dream about. Certain substances can enhance lucid dreaming. The thing that I've found to be most effective, because I think everyone's different with this, is the supplement Huperzine A, which is known to encourage lucid dreaming. I'll write that down for you. A. And having a sleep hygiene, dream incubation type of ritual before you go to bed is really great. I always do yoga, sakriya, meditate a little bit, always have a particular kind of before bed shower. I have certain essential oils that I like to have. I like to have a sort of clean and organized bed space. I like to listen to particular kinds of music before I go to sleep. Anything that creates a ritual out of your dreaming and makes your dreaming a sort of special occurrence. I think I kind of got into lucid dreaming as a kid, or developed it as a kid, because I used to think a lot about having the dreams that I wanted to have. So I had this imaginary idea of there being a cupboard next to my bed where I kept my dream helmet, and when I was going to sleep at night, I'd put my imaginary dream helmet on and I'd turn the knob to what it was that I wanted to dream about. One thing that really helps, especially in expanding hypnagogia, is lying on your back and just not allowing yourself, sort of resisting the urge to roll over on your side and go into a deep sleep straight away, and more consciously enter the dream state. Another really, really good technique for people that haven't had much lucid dream experience is the wake back to bed technique. So this is where you set your alarm for a bit of an earlier time than you would ordinarily wake up. You stay awake for a little period of time, maybe 2 minutes or so, and then go back to sleep. And because your brain and your body prioritizes deep sleep for cell regeneration and restoration and detoxing, the periods of REM become increasingly long towards morning. So you get the longest sessions of REM just before waking. And if you have had a period of wakefulness before this, you're more likely to become lucid during those long periods of REM that follow that short period of wakefulness. So that can really help you. Right, I've got a couple more questions here. That's interesting. So Andrea says, sometimes when I try to lucid dream, I don't have the energy to move, and it's really a struggle, kind of like you're so tired, you don't have control over your body. That's interesting, because that seems to be like quite a, is that a lucid dream? Yeah, that seems to be then quite a deeply entangled state, or maybe you've got more wakefulness features than dreaming features, because it reminds me also when you're in a nightmare, for example, and you try to scream and just a tiny little squeak comes out, or you're trying to run away and it's really like you're moving through sand. It's really, really hard work. And sometimes there are times where I can't open my eyes to see what's happening because there is too much light. It feels like looking straight at the sun. That's very interesting. And Andrew brings up a very interesting point there. So one of the best ways to have lucid dreams is to set aside a time in the day to have a afternoon nap, because you're not in the ordinary nighttime deep sleep phases, you're much more likely to have a lucid dream, because you're more likely to have shallow REM sleep during a afternoon nap. So that's why you're more likely to have a lucid dream then. So this idea of too much sun is very interesting. I mean, I do think that everyone's lucid dreaming, or everyone's dreaming experience, is almost like a kind of fingerprint. There's not a precise measurement to it. So I think of lucidity as being something like a scale, and what Andrew is describing here sounds a lot like there may be more of the wakefulness features in your lucid dream experience than there are, and almost closer to something like sleep paralysis than a classical lucid dream where you have like full agency and movement in a entirely imaginal dream realm. So one thing that you do find in dreaming is you become much more sensitive to very subtle sensory phenomena. So perhaps it's the case that small amounts of light are overwhelming when you're in this semi-dream, semi-wake state, and similarly having to move feels like too much hard work. So there was an interesting thing, we're going to talk about this more next week, but a friend of mine who's a dream researcher, like sleep lab scientist in America, Daniel Oldis, has been doing this amazing research about the micro movements that the voice box makes when we talk in dreams. And because of this, he's trying to record it using electromyography. So this involves putting very, very sensitive sensors all around the face and neck that's trying to record what, because when we dream and we talk in our dream, our voice box is making the micro movements that would correspond with the things that we're saying. So his sensitive electromyography equipment is attempting to amplify these movements so we can actually work out what words we're saying. So effectively, he's trying to record dream speech. And when he told me about this, it's like I've been researching dream technology and dream things like ever since I was a little kid. It's literally been my entire life. It was one of the first things that I just never come across before, and I thought was really amazing. And that night, because he'd inspired me, I had this dream where I was standing in what looked like somewhere like Times Square, and I became lucid and aware of the fact that I could practice this thing that he'd spoken to me about. So I was in the lucid dream just shouting at the top of my voice, "This is amazing!" But I was lucid, and so I could really feel the micro movements in my voice box moving. And I said to him, if you use lucid dreamers in this experiment, they would be able to more significantly amplify organically these movements, so perhaps they would become more readable. So there's all sorts of interesting dream technologies, and I think it's probably something that is going to become more of a thing, especially with our appreciation now of augmented reality, mixed reality, and virtual reality as well. It's quite interesting, maybe a little bit scary, like what might happen on the dream technology front. Just trying to see if there's something that I haven't answered. So Andrew, did that answer your question for you, or is there anything else? Do you have experiences of sleep paralysis? Yeah, okay, great. All right then, everyone, let's move on to our guided hypnagogic meditation. So hopefully you've made some notes and you've made some drawings, and I've shown you some, not exactly graphic, but clear images of things. And if you have a record of all the images that I've shown you in this session, then you have something to refer back to tomorrow morning when you wake up. And just use that as a checklist. When you wake up in the morning, use the notes that you've made, even if you've just recorded what images you've seen. Use that as a checklist when you wake up in the morning to just check off, did this occur in my dream? Did I think of this? Because you know how often certain images or scenes or explanations or words can trigger our memories. Like the next morning we might think we don't remember anything, and then something will happen, we'll see an image or someone will say something and we'll be like, oh my God, you just reminded me of my dream. So use this list of images. I will run through them quickly again now, and use these images as a checklist and check them all off in the morning and see if there's anything you can correlate with what you've seen in the slideshow. So, okay. Just take a minute to get yourself in a relaxed and comfortable position. Lie down, make sure you're going to be warm enough. And we are going to relax. Take a deep breath. Take a very deep breath in and feel your whole body filling up with new, clean, pure air and energy. And as you breathe out, I want you to breathe out any anxiety, any stress, any tension. Just allow any worries from the day, any worries from any time to just drift out of your body, and imagine it just drifting out of your body like very light, gentle, gentle mist. Just want you to imagine now mist surrounding your body. Imagine your body exuding mist. It appears as a cloud surrounding your body. You feel the warmth, the dampness, and then just imagine this cloud of mist rising out above your body, and imagine a cool, cleansing breeze just blowing this mist away, and you feel completely and utterly free, relaxed, serene, and calm. Now I want you to imagine yourself lying under beautiful moonlight on soft, lush grass, surrounded by an inky blue sky twinkling with stars. Feel how good, healthy, and wholesome the earth feels underneath your body. The radiance, the luminescence of the moon pouring down upon your skin, twinkling of the stars. Feels almost as though it's twinkling over your body, sparkling and fizzing over your skin. Take another deep breath in now. And as you breathe out, feel your body just sinking into the earth, deeper and deeper into a wonderful state of relaxation, peace, and calm. See this moonlight rolling over your body. Imagine the lunar orb rolling over your body. A giant ball of light rolling over your body, starting at the very tips of your toes. Rolling, softening all of the bones and muscles in your feet, your ankles, just softening and surrendering to this gorgeous light. Feel of this beautiful orb of light passing over your body, washing you clean, making you pure and healthy, bringing your body into harmony and alignment with the cosmos. Imagine this beautiful orb of lunar light rolling over your shin bones, softening your shin bones, irradiating your shin bones with health, vitality, life, light, consciousness, memory, softening your calf muscles, rolling over your knees, your thighs, your buttocks, your pelvis, stomach, just everything melting and softening underneath the weight, the delicious weight and light of the lunar orb. And feel this beautiful healing light rolling over your heart space, softening your heart, relaxing your heart muscles, allowing your body to synchronize with the pulse and the patterns, the rhythms of the earth and the cosmos. Feel this light expand through your lymphatic system, spreading all across your chest, into your shoulders and armpits, up your neck. Strongly, this healing light rolls up your neck and down your arms, into your hands and fingers, This light rolls over your chin, softening your jaw and mouth. Your tongue, soft, relaxed. Feel your tongue, tip of your tongue moving to the roof of your mouth behind your teeth. Feel the energy of the lunar orb, healing, soft, rounded, luminous, just rolling over your face. If there's any tension left in your face now, just feel it melt away. Your jaw, your cheekbones, your forehead, your temples, your scalp, just softening, softening, softening. Gentle, still, calm, beautified face. Feel the energy of the lunar orb rolling over the crown of your head. It feels delicious, delicious, luminous, radiant sensation sparkling over the crown of your head, around your ears. Your ears soft and relaxed now. And imagine your body floating along in warm, gentle water. Just allow your body to be carried along by the lunar orb. The lunar orb floating next to you in the water, casting its luminous rays, forming rings on the surface of the water, spreading through the water, through your body, bringing you into harmony and alignment with the heart of the planet, the beating heart of the cosmos, with the consciousness of the divine creative spirit. Just feel all of this flowing in and out of your body now. Feel this flowing in and out as the water ebbs and flows and carries you gently along with it. And you're traveling along in the moonlight, enjoying the gentle radiance, luminous glow of the moon. You see trees lining the bank of this river that you're floating along, just allowing the current of the river to carry you along with it. And sitting in the branches of this tree that you can just see as a silhouette against the moonlight, a stark black silhouette with strong, powerful branches just coming into leaf. In this stark black silhouette against inky blue sky twinkling with stars, you can see a beautiful, beautiful barn owl, radiant, glowing with life and light. Its whiteness dazzling, glowing. And you watch it as it takes flight, flies through the sky, gliding above your head, and you allow your consciousness to travel with this bird. And you imagine yourself now in this owl's beautiful, glowing white body, enjoying the evening, the quiet, the stillness, sensitive to any movement, sensitive to any sound. You can hear very clearly the sounds emanating from the grasses and riverbank beneath you. The rippling of the water. This owl is very sensitive to every single sound.
So imagine yourself gliding with the owl, feeling the warm air beneath your wings, feeling the air passing through your feathers, direction of your flight, the eagerness of your claws. Imagine yourself swooping along the riverbank, seeing the river run underneath your eyes, seeing to the left, seeing to the right. Imagine yourself as an owl moving your head around, the ease, the precision, the dexterity. Eyes are very keen and very sharp, crystal clear vision. So imagine yourself settling back in to your tree, finding your nest exists in a hollow. Three little owlets, three little chicks, their mouths open, downy feathered. Imagine yourself as an owl, feeding them the body of the little mouse you've just chewed up. Imagine feeding them from your beak. Feel their little beaks, their little noises and squeaks as they reach up and flap flippers that haven't yet turned into wings. Speckled with little feathers, downy feathers, blind, grey and pink, little tiny claws scrabbling in the nest. Imagine these little creatures. And then you move your awareness out of this tree, out of the little hole in the trunk, and you find yourself among the tree's roots, moving like a snake, like a serpent, weaving in and out of the tree's roots, deep into the underground, feeling the coolness of the earth and the soil against your skin and scales. Imagine yourself weaving through the earth, finding any holes or pockets, finding the taste of water, flickering your tongue out of your serpentine mouth and feeling the air and tasting the air from your sensitive tongue. And when you flicker your tongue out of your serpent mouth, you can sense the breath of a lioness as she walks heavily over the earth, padding giant paws softly over the earth, breathing, sniffing, the way she moves, carefulness, steadiness, the power of her feline actions. Imagine yourself now as this lioness and you come to this tree trunk and you scratch your back. It feels so good scratching your back, your rib cage, really scratching into your spine. How good that feels, relieving this itch, this delicious feeling, stretching back and forth. Feel yourself now stretching through your front legs and back legs, really stretching out your hips and your tail. And feel the fur as it prickles against the texture of the tree trunk. It feels so good. You feel the hair along your spine rise up with pleasure. You close your eyes. You stretch your jaw, yawning. It feels so good to be in this lioness body, so powerful and healthy and strong. So continue walking through the moonlight in your lioness body. Pad easily and carefully along to the edge of the river. When you feel your paws dip into the water's edge, fur around the pads on your paws and claws gets wet and muddy. And you use your big lioness tongue to scoop up the delicious, fresh tasting water from this river. So cool and refreshing, just lapping this water up. Feels and tastes so good and healthy. Feel revived and refreshed. And on this water, you taste something different. You taste the skin of a human. You recognize this taste as being of your own body, and you find yourself back once again in your own body, floating carelessly on the water, just enjoying the ease of floating along, allowing yourself, surrendering yourself to the currents of this gentle river. Something makes you open your eyes at this point. You turn your head gently to your left, and then you turn your head gently to your right. And as you turn your head to the right, with your eyes open, you see a lioness standing on the bank of the river, just watching you glide past her. And she is lapping contentedly at the cool water. And you feel so privileged, so lucky to have seen this beautiful moment, this awe-inspiring creature standing at the bank of the river, just drinking water, just observing you, and enjoying your presence as you enjoy their presence. And you have a moment of looking into this lioness's eyes, and you feel her spirit and her soul. You feel a deep connection that this lioness has arrived to reveal to you something about your own soul. You feel a great bond and connection with this creature, and you know that you'll see her in your dreams, can connect with her in your dreams. When you have this moment of connection in your dreams, you will wake up. You will wake up. And as you wake up now, bring a bit of movement into your body. Move your tongue in your mouth. Blink your eyes a couple of times. And stretch your fingers. Stretch out your feet and toes. Rotate your hands. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath in. Bring more wakefulness into your body. Rub your hands together. Rub your feet together. And become aware of your surroundings as your consciousness returns back to your body and back to your room. And you're awake now, feeling relaxed and calm, ready and looking forward to your night's sleep. And when you're ready, you can come back to a sitting position. You can leave this chat now and go straight into dreaming, or you can stay a little bit afterwards, ask any questions, share any reflections. Next week, as I said, we're going to be talking about dream technologies and the future of dreaming. could work a little bit more with lucid dreaming. And I look forward to seeing you again next week.
Thank you, Anja. Hope you enjoyed that. And as I said, if you do have any questions, you're welcome to ask them. Or if you want to email me any questions or any comments, any feedback, then please also feel free to do that. My email address is here. Right. And if anyone did want to come on the astral bathing weekend, let me know and I'll share the booking information with you as well. Does anyone have any other questions or any comments? Thanks, Donna. Well, in that case, I shall let you all get on with your evening or day or whatever time you're at. Thank you very much, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And I'll send the recording out of this tomorrow. So you should receive that in your inboxes tomorrow. Thanks, everyone. Good night.